Okay, we're live streaming this, but
Turn it on.
oh, hey, that works better. We're live streaming several places around the room, and thank you all for coming. We have some exciting races going on tonight. We always like to start with a prayer. Doc Hubbard, where are you?
I'm in the back.
Oh dear.
Just stand, honey.
Yeah, do you want to just stand and we'll...
You'll bow your heads with me, please. Father, we thank you for this day and for all the things that you do for us, Lord. We ask that you bless all those in Washington and those going to Washington and lead them, Lord, to follow your will and do what you want done up there, Lord. We just thank you for what the ladies do here. Thank you for Chris, for all he's done for the party. We just ask your blessings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. That would be both Chris's, right? Okay, and then we have our pledge to the American flag. Thank you, Stan. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And over here on the wall, if you don't know the Texas flag pledge, it's there. And here's the honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. We're not going to take a lot of time on announcements, but come on in because we got air conditioning. And for the air conditioning and the location tonight, we want to thank the Republican Party of Navarro County and our outgoing chair, Chris Baldwin. Where is Chris? There. Wave, Chris. Oh, there you are. Sit modest by the door. The Conservative Society of Navarro County, we have speakers once a month because we like informed voters. We're on our 4th year, and so I did some organizing. Jackie King is doing our live streaming and a lot of the refreshments. And the Navarro County Conservatives, Chris Ellzey, will be moderating tonight. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris so that we can have more time for our candidates' questions.
Perfect. I was going to get some applause for that. Do I need the microphone?
Yes, yes,
I do?
for this.
Okay, sorry. I'm just going to go over some of the housekeeping issues we have for this tonight. It's going to be really simple. I just want to reinforce to everybody that we are only focusing on the 2 races that were advertised tonight, CD6 and the County Commissioner Precinct number 2. That's all who was invited. That's all who we're going to talk about. And just a little bit of the outline of the evening. We're going to start with the CD6 candidates, and then we'll go to County Commissioner Precinct 2 candidates. Each candidate will get 2 minutes for introduction and then 2 minutes for closing. And if you start first, the other person will end last. Okay? Each candidate will be asked the same questions, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer. And if you reference your opponent, they can have 1 minute to respond. You'll be given notice when you have 30 seconds remaining in your time, and you'll be allowed to finish your sentence when your time is up. And if you keep talking, I will cut you off. I'm not even going to apologize for it. Just out of respect to everyone, I will take that and cut you off. And then if you are asking a question in the audience, please ask a question. We're not here for grandstanding or commentary. We're here for a question to be asked to the candidates, and we'll let them talk. And so we're going to specifically allocate 35 minutes for the CD6 race, and then 25 minutes for the County Commissioner race. And then any remaining time, we'll still take questions, but we want to make sure that both races get time to ask questions specific to their race. Cool? Any questions about any of that? All right, perfect. We're going to start with CD6. So Ron and Jake, if y'all want to come up here, I'm going to sit in the middle. I'm going to control the mic and pass it back and forth. All right? And let's see who's going first. So Jake, you're going to go first. You'll have 2 minutes intro, and then Ron, you will close last when we get there. Good. All right, who's keeping my time? You got it? All right.
Anybody else want to help out? I'm good with that.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. What a wonderful day to be here. And it's down to 2. I'm glad that it's down to 2 of us, because this has been a long, hard race, and we got 6 weeks left. What a beautiful day the Lord has made, and I'm blessed to be here. I don't deserve my next breath, but I'm glad I have it, and I'm grateful for it. Any veterans in the room tonight? Thanks for letting me speak. Any Vietnam vets? Welcome home. We have a tremendous opportunity in this country, and we have a tremendous opportunity in this district for the first time in a generation. I'm a man who's living the American dream every day, but the American dream is not easy. It's hard, it's difficult, it's full of disappointments, it's full of hard work. I'm living that. When I was 7 years old, my parents got divorced, and then God sent me a man that saved my life. He took me flying, and at that point I was hooked, and I knew I wanted to serve this country. So since 1978, I've wanted to do nothing but serve this country. I worked really, really hard. I got made fun of, got bullied in school, because all I wanted to do was go to the Naval Academy and be a fighter pilot for this country and serve our men and women. I got to do that. I didn't do that well in school, but I made it through. I went to flight school, got helicopters, got disappointed. Then I got jets, served 20 years. I spent a lot of time in combat, have 830 carrier arrested landings. When I retired in 2012, I got appointed to the Texas Veterans Commission to take care of 1.7 million Texas veterans. The only thing I care about is service, and that's all I've ever cared about. Today, I serve 175 people 4 times a day flying in an airline, and tomorrow I'll be going off to Point Mugu, California to fly my old fighter jet to train other new F-18 pilots in the Marine Corps and the Navy how to do their craft. I'm very blessed to do these things, and it's because of this country that I'm able to do them. And I can't wait to keep serving you in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Ron Wright, and I'm from Tarrant County, and I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank the organizations that put this on for the opportunity. First, I want to thank my opponent for his service to our country. Thank you, Jake. And I want to introduce my best friend and my wife, and my harshest critic and best advocate, Susan Wright, right here. She's helped make me what I am, so glad she's here. Listen, I want to be your next congressman. I have been involved in community service most of my adult life, going back to the 1980s. I didn't seek elective office till I was 47 years old, and that's when I ran for city council in Arlington. Currently, I'm the Tarrant County Tax Assessor Collector, but I was also the district director for the current Congressman Joe Barton in the 6th District, and so I know the district, and I served for 2.5 years as his Chief of Staff in Washington. So I have some unique experiences that can be brought to bear as your next Congressman. I think there's a lot of really important issues that are going to come out that we're going to talk about tonight. And look forward to that. So I'm going to give you back some time.
So our first question, we're going to start with one that we had pre-submitted. There's a lot of federal government agencies, and we're just wondering, how are you going to reduce the government? What agencies would you cut, and what ways would you cut federal spending? And Jake, we'll start with you.
Thanks for the question. I recognize that I'm one of 435, so just discipline, monetary discipline, spending discipline is one way we start with that. Now, my expertise is in the Navy, and we have a new aircraft carrier that we built called the USS Ford. It's a tremendous aircraft carrier, but that thing costs $14 billion. Most of the time I flew off of a Nimitz-class carrier, which originally were built for $4 billion. Now they're costing $6 billion. So we can trim down our Navy and make it far more effective by going back to steam. I know that's a little bit deep, but that's the expertise that I have. Now, as far as agencies that we want to cut, anybody wants to put legislation in order right now, I'd be happy to sponsor that does away with the Department of Education. Let's start it. Didn't get brought into service till 1979, and that was to buy off the teacher vote, but that has done nothing for the well-being of our students in this country. And you can't tell me that the people in the Valley want to educate their kids the same way they do want to do that up in Connecticut. Let's just get rid of that department right away, because we're spending a lot of money and getting nothing in return. And that's not part of the Constitution in the first place. Tell me where it says we should have a Department of Education. It doesn't. So let's cut back all that stuff. We got 150 agencies that we can start with, cutting back immediately. And I think we need to have a sunset commission, just like we have here in the state of Texas, that looks at every one of those agencies, and it either gets absorbed by the Congress or we cut it all together. We're spending way too much money up in Washington, D.C. that they're not supposed to have according to the Constitution. All that power, according to the 10th Amendment, belongs here in the state. And I would like nothing more than to make our state representatives far more important than the congressman in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Well, I agree with that, everything you just said, but the first thing I would do is I would go into HHS and I would rip out everything that has to do with Obamacare. And if we don't do that, then we don't deserve to be the majority party in Congress. We failed last year. We've got to do it again. We've got to try and get it done. I agree with Jake that we should do away with the Department of Education. We don't need a federal department for education. That's a local and state matter. There are a lot of things as the federal government has grown that we need to look at that the states ought to be doing. And we need to look at every one of those. But we also have to look at entitlements. We've got to get spending under control, people, and the only way we can do that is entitlement reform. And that's going to take a lot of courage, because that is the issue that is the easiest to demagogue by the other side. But if we don't get entitlements under control, we're never going to get spending under control. Thank you.
All right, so we will go ahead and open up the floor. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand, and I will recognize you. Question?
Do I get to do one for Ron and one for Jake?
Same question for both of them.
Okay. So this is for both of you. Freshman representatives are made to know the ropes to skip and the ropes to know why a select few who manage the swamp. It is well known if you want something out of DC, they own you. Which is more important to you, pushing for your voters' issues or moving up the congressional ladder?
I'm first again. I'm first every time?
We'll do that.
Lucky you.
Okay. All right. So the question was, where do I live? I live here. My family's here. My beautiful wife Shelby is here with me tonight. Thanks for coming, baby. We got 2 beautiful kids, age 9 and 6. Every time I'm not with them, I miss them. So I'm coming to represent you. I'm not up there to join any other groups or do anything other than represent the people of this district. And it is diverse. You come downhill here in Ellis and Navarro, and it's different than Tarrant County. But we've got great people with the heartbeat of America beating right within it. I see some folks from all the counties here, and it's good to have everybody here. But the heartbeat of America is right here, and that's where I live. You know, when I retired in 2012 from the Navy, I did not have a job, and yet we bought a house in Ellis County on 10 acres, because that's where I wanted to raise my kids, in a place very much like where I grew up, but with more trees and less wind, in the panhandle of Texas, and raise our kids in a great public school system like we have here. There is nothing for me in Washington, D.C. I intend to go up there without reproach, do my work on the day that it starts, conduct my business honorably to your satisfaction, vote according to the needs and desires of this district, and then come back home to my family and continue to raise them, because you know, I'm an airline pilot right now, and Shelby's already been through this where I'm gone for 3 or 4 days at a time, so we live this life already, and there's nothing I want to do more than just come home. And when I come home, I'll be accountable to you. I want to be all over this district. First of all, I love the people in this district. There's so many characters. Some folks like me, some folks don't like me. Everybody's got an opinion. I like this involvement in our democracy. That is why this is the heartbeat of America right here. So I want to come home. I want to be held accountable to you. I see this as a 2-year temporary assignment, much like I had in the military. Every 2 years it's up for review for you. I don't need this. I have to have this because it's my duty, it's my calling. The man I wear on my wrist lost his life on our last day in Iraq on April 6, 2007. I was going to comment on it on Twitter, and I decided not to because that is his day, and I don't think it's worthy of it. But I'm doing this for him and many of my other pilot friends who I've lost in service because they can't serve anymore. This is just an extension of my service in the Navy, and I'd be proud to do it and come home and serve you. Thank you.
I know where the pitfalls are up there. I've been there. I've worked up there as a chief of staff, and I can tell you that it's very much like she said. You know, once people know that you want something as a member of Congress, there are a lot of people that will help you get that, but you have to accept what they want in order to get there. And you know, the best example I can give of dysfunctional government is the omnibus bill that was just passed. That's horrible. It's a horrible bill, and it never should have passed. And the president, although I get that he needed the military spending, and I would have supported that part of it, but he should have vetoed it and sent it back to him and told him to redo it. If it meant shutting the government down for a while, then yeah, you do that. But those things, that's how that happens. How something like that happens is people will want something, and in order to get it, they have to agree with what somebody else wants. And I'm going to avoid that. I've already said publicly, I'm going to self-limit to 4 terms. I'm not there to climb the leadership ladder. I'm there to represent you. I've also said that if I'm invited, I'll join the Freedom Caucus, because those are the guys with whom I agree up there right now. And I'm willing to say no. The most important vote that a member of Congress can take sometimes is a no vote. And I'm prepared to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's our next question? Yes, sir.
Both of you gentlemen, I followed you through the campaign. I'm Mark Hartwell for the Course County Daily Sun. I just heard your responses to the government agencies and how you would pare those down. But how would you deal with the most evil words in government, which are unfunded mandates?
Did everybody hear the question?
Unfunded mandates.
How do I deal with that as one of 435?
Right.
Vote no.
Vote no.
You don't put pork in the bills. You know that when you pass an omnibus bill, you do us all a disservice. Congress does us all a disservice, not you. I mean, I'm trying to go up there and stop that nonsense. That should have been a clean defense bill. They add so much junk to those bills. We've lived in sequestration, and I know about this for the last 10 years. And our military is not ready. We're fighting 3 wars right now. We're fighting in 7 countries that we know of. I'm sure that the Delta and DevGru are in several other countries that we don't know about. But we can't limp along from war to war while the enemies and the gathering storm is out there. The gathering storm is China, and they just met. China, Iran, and Russia, they're calling themselves the axis of resistance. The storm clouds are gathering. We can't afford to say our number 1 priority is to defend this country and then have it pass an omnibus bill. That should have been a clean defense bill. We owe it to our veterans, we owe it to our active duty military, and we owe it to you. That is a simple, simple job to do. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. This is something I'm very passionate about, but we've got a lot of issues that are gathering right there. In Syria, we're talking about an attack. They just launched a gas attack on their own citizens. We've drawn a line in the sand many, many times. At what point do we stop? At what point do we say, we've got a strong enough military that you're not going to bully us anymore? Because we all know that bullies only attack the weak. They're sensing weakness in us because we are fighting in many, many wars. We've got a lot of veterans that are hurting right now. And we've got a lot of ships and aircraft that are falling down on the job because we've used them so widely. So it's time to cut back from that omnibus bill, have clean bills, and go from there. But we do ourselves a disservice when we don't do that.
I think your question had to do with unfunded mandates.
Yes, sir.
Well, you do away with them, and you oppose them. The federal government shouldn't have unfunded mandates for the states. The states shouldn't have unfunded mandates for local communities. They all do that. And it's hard to stop it because it's so easy to pass the cost on down to someone else. But that's something I would absolutely oppose 100%.
All right, next question.
Thank you, Chris. Eric Myers. The question I have for you gentlemen is, in your entire service or career, have you ever voted for eminent domain? We have something very near and dear to the hearts of our citizens throughout Navarro County that could impact the eminent domain issue, and I would like to know your thoughts on eminent domain in general, and have you ever voted on it in the past?
I clearly have not voted on eminent domain. I haven't been an elected official. I'm a TVC commissioner, but that is not something that is in my purview. But something near and dear to us is our property, our land, our way of life. We don't live out here because we want to live in Dallas. We live out here because we want this way of life. That's being threatened right now. And we can't stand for it. There is no purpose, there's no reason, there's no rationale for the insanity that continues in the paper almost weekly in the Dallas Morning News. The high-speed rail has got this now. I'm not understanding it. Nobody has yet to tell me if they're going to have eminent domain for this and what the purpose is. The only people that's going to benefit are the people who are building that train. And it's going to destroy our way of life. I moved out to the country, as I said, when I didn't even have a job. 10 acres, when you're an airline pilot, that's about 5 too many, but I'm glad to have it, glad to have that space. But I moved out to the country so I can preserve that way of life. This is going to be a destruction on our way of life in Ellis and Navarro County. I don't care what anybody says. This is not going to be what it's panned out to be. They spent $60 billion on this project in California. It's an absolute failure. I'll put myself in between anybody who wants to take this land from us and that high-speed rail. You can count on that.
Well, I agree on the train. You know, Ellis and Navarro County, all the counties in between Dallas and Houston, they do not exist for the benefit of Dallas and Houston. That's not why they're there. And I think to use eminent domain anytime for private enterprise is wrong and should always be avoided. I have served on a city council. I was the mayor pro tem in Arlington. And in a growing city, yes, there's going to be eminent domain. I have voted against more eminent domain than anybody that served on the city council in the 8 years I was there. And I was a city councilman that proposed and got passed a supermajority requirement to use eminent domain. And after that, you know, 5 people on the council couldn't do it. And before that, they could. And it was because of some very controversial things that had happened in Arlington, like condemning someone's house in 3 acres to extend a water park. Well, that didn't make sense, and I came out against it, and finally was able to shame the council into accepting that supermajority requirement. Because when you're in a position like that, city council or county commissioner or legislator, whatever it might be, where you have the power of eminent domain, you use it only for a public purpose, and you use it very sparingly. But yes, I have.
Mr. Wright, I'd like to ask you a question.
Is it a question for both candidates?
No, just a different candidate. Both candidates.
Okay, if it's a question for both candidates, then we'll take it. That's
I'm a Vietnam veteran and an Army veteran and Marine Corps veteran.
Can we try to get you on?
You're going to pull the...
I'm a Marine Corps veteran and a Army veteran Ranger, and I'm 100% disability. I'm not yet. I've worked on getting 100% disability, and I do have 100% disability, but I'd like to work on some of the veterans that here in my county that I could help, and I'm not getting any help from the VA. The VA is doing very well what they do. I love them every day, but we need a little more help from these veterans, combat veterans. I'm not talking about regular veterans, I'm talking about a combat veteran. Okay.
Thank you.
It's time to reorganize the VA according to the customer, from the top down. What we're getting told at the local level, and Larry's talked about this before, is that it's too top heavy. Of course, everything that comes from Washington D.C. seems to be top heavy. That's why the founding fathers had the brilliance that they did, that said this Constitution limits your power. But starting in 1913 with Woodrow Wilson, and 1964 with the Great Society, that has taken on a life of its own. It's hard to peel that back, but it's time. Now we need to reorganize the VA according to the customer. The VA, or the VFW, the American Legion, the IAVA, the Texas Veterans Commission, Disabled American Veterans, all are stakeholders in our veterans affairs. They need to be the bosses of the Veterans Administration, and I would propose legislation that started from a top-down blue ribbon panel from all of our veterans that says, here's what we're going to do to the VA. We're going to reorganize it for you. It does give great care, but it's from the top down. That's not how good organizations work. To care for him who shall have borne the battle, and his widow and his orphan. That's what Abraham Lincoln said, and that's how we need to consider this. But there's too many people in Washington, D.C. who get very, very cozy and very comfortable in their jobs up there, and it's time to clean house.
First thing we need to do, and thank you for your service, sir. First thing we need to do is get a leader in there. As you know, that's been a problem for years, getting a leader of the Department of Veterans Affairs that stays any length of time and is able to institute any reforms. But the Congress has the power to force that on the executive. They can force reform measures through legislation, and the Congress should do that. I agree with what Jake has said.
Thank you. Mr. Chris.
I have a question on the latest involvement regarding CPEC, the Chinese-Pakistan exchange corridor, where they're taking oil filtered from Iraq, shipping out of the ports of Doha through Pakistan and into the Chinese border. What is your stance, and how do you think that would affect us economically? And if so, with the demands of natural resources, I mean, where do you see us if that goes through? I mean, do you see waging a war over it? I mean, strategically and economically, how do you see that affecting us?
You're going to have to reacquaint me on what CPEC is.
Okay, CPEC is the Chinese-Pakistan exchange corridor. What China is proposing to do is to shorten their route of oil delivery from Iraq into China, because they're trying to develop the entire country. The vast majority of China, the populace lives on the northwest. They're trying to make it much like the United States. In remote areas of China, all the way across to the western border, they're wanting to expand infrastructure. And if they do that, they become a large consumer for products of oil, mass resources. They're going to need to develop those logistic chains. And if they do, Iran has already said they want in on the deal. Iraq, Afghanistan want in on the deal. So you have the Middle East combining on the oil trade. That leaves us where? If we're consuming, what, a sixth of the world's natural resources, but we don't even own a sixth of the world's population, how are we going to balance that? How are we going to combat that economically?
Called Alaska, drilling offshore, being energy independent. No, I don't want to go. I mean, those are sovereign nations. You don't go to war with them because they're developing their own natural resource transportation. But we do need to be energy independent. I'm for anything that does that. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of Alaska land, and we finally got it drilling. We're finally drilling in Alaska and onward. This has been going on since I was a little kid. I remember this issue coming up during the Carter administration. Can't drill in onward. Well, yes, you can. We need energy independence because that's a national security issue. I don't want to go to war with anybody. I've done it. There's no good in it. Sometimes it's necessary. But economic independence, economic freedom, and petroleum freedom is something that we need to continually strive for. And in fact, now we are the largest producer of oil in the world. And that is good for us. So we've got our own friends. They're developing their own thing. They're going to do it poorly. You and I both know that. We've got the best brains. We've got the best business. We've got the best industry in the world. They're not even going to touch us. They want to get off in their little enclave and try to do these things. I've been to Saudi Arabia. They can't do it without us. I've been to all these nations that produce oil. They do it with our help, our technology, our manpower. So no, it is a national security issue, and we're making large strides to getting energy independent as it is right now. We can continue to do that, and I'm all for that. Let's keep on drilling, baby.
Actually, we almost are energy independent, especially when it comes to oil, because of technology that we've been able to use, like fracking. We can get to oil that we never could get to before. And I'll point out a couple of things. You now can drill in Anwar. The legislation last year opened that up for drilling. It didn't make a big splash in the media, but we can do it now. Trump is still trying to open up the East and West Coast for drilling. He's getting a lot of pushback from those states. They're all blue states, but the economy of the United States depends on that. So I think ultimately that's going to happen. As to your question, no, that's not something we'd go to war over. The trade agreements between different countries is something that we respect, just like we expect them to respect our trade agreements. So, you know, there's really nothing we can do other than, unless we want to apply sanctions, in which I'm all over sanctions for Iran, you know. And I mean, the Obama administration had the worst foreign policy of any president probably in my lifetime. And to say something is worse than Jimmy Carter is really saying something. But it really set us back in a number of areas, and that's one of them, is the way they dealt with Iran. But the Iraqi oil going through Pakistan, that's not something we're going to do anything about.
Every day on our news broadcast, we hear about Mueller did this, Mueller did that, the president said this, the president said that. I know that we're all confused of what is going on in Washington and why they're going after the president. And as public servants, if you get in Washington, I would like to know, are you going to stand up and say, hey, we're going to take your money away from you, we're going to quit paying you, you people go home, it's over with, it's done, and when are you going to turn on the lights on this thing?
Just to clarify, is this in reference to the special investigations?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's run by the Department of Justice, and it was a mistake from the beginning. And when the Attorney General recused himself, I think that took everybody off guard. And then you had Mr. Rosenstein, who was an Obama holdover, decide to appoint the special prosecutor, who also happens to be the precursor to Comey at the FBI. I mean, it almost feels like here in Texas we're the only ones going, this stinks. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Any effect I could have on pulling the plug on any funding for that, I'd be happy to do. This is outlandish. You know, during President Obama's tenure, not once did anybody ever appoint a special prosecutor. Not once. Fast and Furious is the first call that should have been for. They were running guns to Mexico, which subsequently killed one of our Border Patrol agents, and no special prosecutor? Where were the Republicans then? I understand why everybody's upset with the Republican Party. They get comfortable up there, they don't do what they're supposed to do. Oversight is our job. Do it. It's not that hard, it's very simple, and it's your duty, it's in your oath. So that is one of the things that I would love to do. Pull the plug and have some oversight in Washington, D.C.
You know, every elected official has to be accountable, including the President of the United States. And everybody should hold him accountable for his actions and the actions of those that are under him in the executive branch. But I don't think there's any question that the Mueller investigation is a witch hunt. I mean, that's something that just should be obvious to everybody. And what I think they're doing, I think they're trying to set up a Nixon scenario where they force him to fire the special prosecutor, and then all kinds of turmoil would ensue after that. I mean, there's no question they're trying to get him out. They have never accepted the fact that Donald Trump was elected President of the United States. And they're trying to get him out. They're going to find everything they can to lead to an impeachment. And, you know, this is wrong. This is not democracy that we should have here in America. And it's something that every member of Congress should have the courage to stand up and say enough. No more of this.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
While we have a great amount of concern on foreign policy, I feel like right now what we're facing in our country is a kind of a social civil war among our citizens about what is constitutional and what isn't. And while California is looking at trying to succeed in the United States, in our sanctuary cities, I want to know what you're going to do about those officials in those cities that are breaking the law now and protecting the criminal activity that is against the federal law. And how, if you've got an entire country like a state like California, how are we going to protect our entire western border from being invaded when we have an entire state that does not want to work with us? How is our federal government going to protect that seaboard?
Ma'am, just to clarify, are you asking about the border, or are you talking about sanctuary cities, or the prosecution of the officials that break the law?
Officials that break the law that allow all that to happen.
Since that is a federal law, that belongs to the FBI and the Department of Justice that they're breaking. The FBI needs to prosecute those according to the Attorney General. Jeff Sessions, from all measures, seems to be a very good guy, but I think he's sleeping on the job. And I think he needs to go after those officials. They clearly broke the law. Who is it not okay? Who is it okay for that? Who can do that? Starting with Hillary Clinton, we're seeing the exact same thing. They didn't prosecute her. She clearly broke the law. You can't have classified servers at your house. I was a military man. I would have been prosecuted, tossed out of the military, and sent to jail for one of the things that she did, and that is passing along a classified email to her assistant. So this is the FBI's deal. FBI is showing its true colors to be, I hate to use the words, but it starts with D and it's state. And I don't like those words, but they're showing no indication that they're anything but deep state. It needs to be wiped out from the top, not wiped out. Don't take, that's not what I mean. However, everybody needs to be fired, clean the house, start from the beginning. I have some friends from my school that are at the FBI. I know they're good people, but everybody at the top is entrenched. Every agency has that group of people, don't they? We've been talking about it for a long, long time. Let's start with all those agencies. Clean out, clean house, or we're going to withhold your money because that is our job. We don't give it to you, you don't have it, and you don't exist. So do your jobs.
This has been happening for a long time, and that is that you have a double standard in this country with liberals and conservatives, and they're not held to the same standard when they're in government. You know, the left in this country would have us believe that there are certain laws that really don't count, that really don't matter, that it's okay if you break that law, and immigration's a perfect example. Illegal immigration is illegal, and the people that come in here illegally, they're not undocumented, they're illegal. They shouldn't be here. And they try and put us on the defensive with all of these things, like sanctuary cities, like somehow we're the evil ones, we're the racists. You know, if we disagree with them on that. But we have laws in this country, and those laws apply to everybody, including liberals, including people that are here illegally. And if, to your question, if there's a mayor or a governor or a county judge or whatever the case may be that's violating the law, then they need to be prosecuted and federal funding withheld until they get it right.
Yes, sir.
First of all, in regards to Billy Carter, the only reason he made president because he couldn't run a filling station. Billy did it. Secondly, I've got a question for you. In Washington, they talk about entitlements, cutting entitlements. You brought it up here tonight. What specifically do you consider entitlements?
Well, Social Security is something you paid into, right?
Amen.
So it's not an entitlement, it's your money. Okay? Entitlements have become a catch-all for every benefit that the federal government hands out. As far as I'm concerned, the only people who are entitled to anything that is not something you've paid into is the VA.
Yeah.
Is veterans benefits. Everything else is money that we've handed out for votes. And it's not us. This is what the liberals, this is what the left have done for 3 generations now. And that's why we're in the trouble that we are. But you and I both know that Social Security and Medicare are things that you've paid into. Those are benefits that you've earned. It's taken out of your check every month, every 2 weeks, whenever you get your paycheck. Those are yours, so it's not an entitlement. I don't like grouping those things in there, and that should be preserved for you. But everything else needs to be looked at very, very closely. Let's do drug tests for anybody who is on welfare. Let's start with that. I mean, that may cost some money, but I tell you what, it'll clean them up. Let's get them in jobs. I mean, it's under the Obama administration. You and I both know all these programs expanded because I'm convinced he said he wanted to fundamentally transform this country. He had 8 years to do it, and he had nobody stopping him, not even the Republican Party. That stops now. So let's look at it. Let's act like we're the ones in power. Let's do something about it. Let's clean up this country.
In Washington, they're called earned entitlements or unearned entitlements. And Social Security is an earned entitlement. That's your money. Veterans benefits, that's an earned entitlement. But the unearned entitlements are the ones that just are mind-boggling. In Texas, the Texas portion, the state portion of Medicaid was 9%. Now it's over 30% of the state budget. And that's just the state portion, never mind the federal portion. It's things like that that continue to grow totally out of proportion of what it was envisioned when they were started. And all of these things need to be looked at very seriously. We first need to question whether they're still necessary, whether the federal government should even be involved in it, or whether it should be sent back to the states. There's a lot of things that can be done at the congressional level. We just need people up there with the courage to bring it up.
All right, we have time for one last question, and then we're going to do their closing statements, and then I'll bring the county commissioners up. After the county commissioners have their time, then we'll bring everybody up, and if you have any remaining questions, we'll do that all at the end, but I want to make sure we give the county commissioners ample time as well. So, yes, sir, you had a question.
Over the last decade, Texas has been an economic model, even during the Obama administration, that generated dynamic business growth and opportunities for the wonderful economy. If you are elected, how will you bring that model and work with other members of the Texas contingents in Congress and the Senate to bring that model to the national stage?
What can we do at the federal level to assist that?
Yes, sir.
Cut back on those federal agencies. Sunset Commission. Let's have that legislation right now. Texas Veterans Commission just underwent the Sunset Commission review. They look at every project that we have and decide if it's worthy of the state's funding or not. And a lot of state agencies in the state of Texas get shut down that way. The federal government is not in the business of picking winners or losers. Federal government should be getting out of the way. I see a lot of people sitting in this room today who are affected by federal regulations that costs off the top. We need to be out of that business. That has nothing to do with the federal government, the charter and the U.S. Constitution. This Constitution is a very simple document. I challenge you to find where the EPA is. We have the TCEQ in this state. We don't need the EPA. We don't need their help. It's redundancy. That power belongs to the state. Nobody's going to be poisoning the water. I keep to the left. Well, what about the water? The water's clean. We already have the laws on the books. So tell me why we still need the EPA. It's a self-licking ice cream cone. That's what my old commanding officer used to say. It's a self-licking ice cream cone. They have jobs to make more problems so they can justify their jobs. That's what the IRS does. That's what the EPA does. That's what the federal government does. Every agency in it. Let's have a sunset commission like we have in Texas. Let's cut back on the regulations and let's light this economy on fire. And that's how we'll do it.
One thing that I would recommend, those of us with a little gray in on our heads, will remember the Grace Commission in the Reagan he is funny, I guess. But the Grace Commission, Peter Grace was head of this commission that Reagan put together to have successful business leaders come in, people outside of government come in and take a look at government and make recommendations for streamlining it, doing away with unnecessary programs, and make recommendations, which they did. Some were adopted, a lot were not because Congress wouldn't go along with it, but the things that Reagan could do, he did do. And we need something like that. We need eyes outside of the government coming in and looking at the government and making recommendations to the President and the Congress. But I'll tell you, you know, Texas succeeds because of its low tax, low regulation state, but also because of its people. We're very enterprising people. We're very industrious people. We're hardworking people. We're independent people. And that's another lesson that other states could learn from us. But for the federal government to adopt Texas ways of doing things, which I wish they would, it's going to first require, again, I'm going to come back to something I keep talking about over and over again, and that is the horrendous level of spending that the federal government does, and we've got to get it under control. We've got to stop adding to the debt. What we're doing to our grandchildren and great-grandchildren should be criminal. We've got to get that under control.
So, Jake, you have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
Chris, Dottie, and Chris, thank you all for hosting this tonight. You're setting the standard for the rest of this district. A lot of folks are really tired of all these elections, I understand that. But we need you to go out and vote May 14th to the 18th, and on May 22nd is Election Day. I'm very blessed to be here with you all tonight. It's been a great crowd. I've really enjoyed this. We have an opportunity here for the first time in a generation. You have to make a good choice. So be educated about this. I want to tell you something. I've seen where we are in this country. I've got young children who I want to leave this country to more prosperous and more safe for them. My son wants to be in the military. I want to make sure that what we're fighting right now, Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa, it's wrapped up before he gets there. That's my duty to him. That's my duty to my comrades who I've lost in combat and lost in the service. Storm clouds are on the horizon. We know that. And we're at a crossroads in this country. You take a left, it ends poorly. You take a right, things end well. We need people who are going to go up there not for a career. I'm going to go up there for 5 terms, 10 years, be effective for you. Come home and answer to you every time I'm not in session. Come home to you and tell you, here's what we're doing to make this country better, to get the government out of your life. Because you deserve that. You deserve to keep your money. You deserve to keep more of it. You deserve your businesses to grow without government interference. The government is not here to help. And we need to understand that. And that's the philosophy that I'm taking up to Washington, D.C. It's been a real honor and a privilege to have made it this far. I am living the American dream. You couldn't have told me 40 years ago that I would be in a runoff for the nomination for the Republican seat for District 6 in the United States Congress. Only in America. I am so blessed. Thank you all for having me tonight. God bless all of you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you again for being here and for putting this on. This is an important election. And what I have to offer you is experience, is the fact that I have demonstrated, I don't just talk about it, I have demonstrated conservative leadership, standing up for conservative values and conservative ideals. I'm the one who, you know, put In God We Trust on tax statements in Tarrant County and put up with all that came after that from all the liberals that wanted to sue me, including the good folks in Wisconsin that like to bully school boards. I'm the one that said no to Planned Parenthood and fought Planned Parenthood and United Way funding of Planned Parenthood. I'm the one that went to Austin and testified repeatedly for tax reform and lower taxes, lower property taxes. I've done all of these things over the years that prove that I will stand up for you. I will stand up for your values and your ideals to keep America great, or as our president likes to say, make it great again. I think it's already great. But it could, you know, as Ronald Reagan said, it's one generation away. Every generation has that responsibility to stand up and say no to the left and protect what makes this nation what it is. So thank you for being here, and I hope you'll support me on Election Day. Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all. So we're going to take the county commissioners for precinct 2 right now. Now don't worry if you have more questions. All right, we're going to go back to questions for everybody after the county commissioners have gone. All right, so if you still have questions, just write them down and we'll come back to those when we have time. This scientific decision method, Eddie Perry will be going first. 2 numbers and a Whataburger cup is pretty, well, Whataburger colored. Scientific. You ready? All right, so we will have the same format. Each candidate will get 2 minutes intro, and then it will be 2 minutes to answer questions, and both candidates will be posed the same question. So, Eddie Perry, you'll go first.
Hello, I want to thank y'all for coming tonight. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and give you a little background on myself. I was born and raised in Powell, grew up on a farm. Did the farm duties, everything like that. One thing I learned as a child was the value of a dollar. For example, in 1974, there was a big drought. There was no crops being made. The feed for the cattle was very expensive. I was 13 years old. I thought I was grown. I'd been driving a tractor, driving a pickup along, thought I had it going on. I woke up one Sunday morning, went into the kitchen, looked on the table, found 4 quarters. Picked those 4 quarters, went out to the store, walked over next door to the store and bought a Dallas Morning News newspaper. Now, I didn't sneak out of the house, but I did use the front door where no one else used unless you were selling something or you was lost. I come back into the house, opened the newspaper up, my dad come around. Asked me where I got the newspaper. I told him it was got it from the store. He asked me who paid for it. I said I bought it with our money on the table. The man stood up, took his belt off, and proceeded to give me a lesson. I learned 2 valuable lessons that day. One of them was the value of a dollar, and the other was it was a difference between his and ours. So that's something that stuck with me. After graduating high school, I worked in the lumberyard for a few years. I am currently a real estate broker and work for the county jail as a corporal in the jail. Supervise 18 employees there and about 250 inmates. On the real estate side, I have 3 agencies working for me and supervise them. Thank you.
Bob?
Hello, I'm Bob Carroll, and I want your support and your vote for County Commissioner. 2 minutes, I can't even pray in 2 minutes, so I'm out of luck. But I have had the opportunity to live in Navarro County 14 years. My wife and I, Pamela, moved south of Kearns on 309, and we have a ranch and raise cattle and longhorns. And I've had the opportunity to work 37 years with Atmos Energy. I started with Lone Star Gas in 1978. I put in a 37-year career, all in management, in 5 different careers within the company. I managed our buildings and facilities and multi-million-dollar contracts and about 160 employees. I was the right-of-way manager and dealt with eminent domain for 19 years with TXU when we were 7 years in our merger with TXU Electric and with Atmos Energy. And I dealt with thousands of landowners on 6,500 miles of pipelines of our projects of installing and maintaining pipelines. And those landowners did not invite me to the Dairy Queen. They were typically dealing with damages or issues that we had not done something right. I've had that great opportunity to have that career that what I have always been as a young man, that I could support those causes. And that cause is that I've been in a ministry preaching the gospel. I'm an ordained Southern Baptist, ordained the Bible Church, and I've been preaching 47 years. And I preached all over the United States in prisons. I was out in the Jesus movement in California in 70 and 71, 72. I pastored in Dallas as well. I've been a volunteer Santa for 45 years, off and on. And the last 20 with my beard, and I go to hospitals, schools, and nursing homes. I've always served, and I want to give back. I'm not seeking this as a financial stability or for the benefits or for retirement. I've earned those and I've worked, but I want to give back to this county and work with the county commissioners to do the things that need to be done in this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So our first question for both of our candidates here, it deals with our Sheriff's Department. There's a large percentage of the budget that's tied up, and it goes to the Sheriff's Department, the jail, so on and so forth. There's various issues that are come with that department, and our question for y'all is, what are your plans to improve in the Sheriff's Department? What ways could you streamline? Could you help with costs? Those kinds of things.
Well, the Sheriff's Department is very overcrowded, or the jail is. It's 265 inmates there the last time I was there. There are ways that you can cut costs. As far as, for instance, if you take the Class C, the minor traffic violations and things like that, give them a ticket and let them out. They have also opened up the county court at law, which is streamlined. It's helped a lot. I don't know where we'd be if it wasn't for it. As far as the overcrowding, the most feasible thing to do would be outsource it to a outside agency.
As I mentioned, my 37 years with Lone Star Gas and Atmos Energy, if it taught me anything, it taught me that I was in no position until I assumed the position and to learn about the position that I should make any changes. It's kind of rash to say I can do this and do that and streamline. What I found in my career, over 5 areas that I was never educated, never trained, and was never interviewed, that I managed, from all of our headquarters in downtown Dallas to our 50 contractors and all my right-of-way, is that you come aboard and you meet with those who are there, and you learn about the issues, and you meet with the sheriff. When we speak of this issue, you meet with the sheriff, you meet with the other commissioners, and you see what the issues are, see what the priorities are, and then you see how you can be responsible for the tax dollars and the budgetary monies of this county to improve those things. I think it would be rash for me to say, well, I'm going to streamline this or change this, because at this moment I don't know. But what I do know, I know how to manage employees, I know how to manage multi-million-dollar budgets and multi-million-dollar projects. And so what you do is you first learn and you meet and you hear from those who really have the experience and have their hand on the plow to see what needs to be done and see how we can remedy those issues. And I've already heard many of them, even as I stood in front of the early voting the 9 days, that I heard all kinds of comments of what needed to be done, what we need to do with prisoners, what we need to do with facilities. You don't make those decisions until you get down there with the boots and on the ground and try to learn and find out and see what the issues are and the solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and take any questions that y'all have from the audience. Yes, sir.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Guys, 2 years ago I was sitting where you were.
Let me get you over here, Katie.
Don't pull the speaker off.
2 years ago I was sitting where you are, and I was fielding questions that I really didn't know what existed. In the short term that I've been a commissioner, I've learned a lot. Mainly to do with the budget. The one thing that I've always learned is this is a people business. How will y'all deal with the budget? Because you have your own budget along with the county's budget, and then you have personal employees that you're over, and then you've got the courthouse and the other things. How well are y'all versed with what you're faced with coming into the first of the year?
That's a very good question, and that's one of those things we really won't know until we get there. As far as the budget, I mean, I've had a real estate company for several years. I've managed it. I've worked on various nonprofit organizations, and helped them with their budgets and things like that. The only thing that I could say is, from the people side of it, is if you give people more than they will more than they expect, they will respect you 100% more. And I feel that would be good with the budget as far as just helping the people out and managing their money properly.
I'm thankful for the opportunity that I've had with my career with Lone Star Gas and InSearch and Atmos Energy. When I was the property manager and the facilities manager of our downtown corporate headquarters in downtown Dallas, the 5 buildings that I managed, we had a multi-million-dollar budget that I was personally responsible for, from the roofs to the elevators. I had 160 employees that reported to me. 34 were in-house security officers. 22 were part-time Dallas police officers. We actually hired them as part-time police officers, as employees. And I've had the opportunity not only to manage employees, but to manage budgets and to look at what needs to be done as far as cutting waste, getting the best deal and the best commodities that we use, to look at those things and review those things, but as well to work with employees. What I was thrown into the position of being a supervisor as a young man when I assumed the responsibility, and my father said, if you treat them fairly, you're not double-tongued, you're not two-faced, you become their cheerleader, you empower them, you set boundaries of responsibility and you hold them accountable, and you treat them like you want to be treated, then you'll earn their respect. And I hope and I believe that over my 37 years of both being a minister and being an employee and having people that work for me, that I could draw the best out of them and lead them as a servant leader, because I've always believed that whatever job I had, that I did exactly what my employees did. I could do the same thing and work alongside of them and help them and show them and encourage them, but be interested in them personally as an individual and not just as a corporate employee. That was not favorable in management and corporate philosophy, because corporate philosophy historically in the 70s and 80s, when I assumed the responsibility, they thought all you want them to do is perform the work and do the work. You don't want to get to know them personally. Well, I did. I wanted to make certain that they bought into where we were going and what we were doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, next question. Yes, sir.
I'm Rachel Ballard. I'm a resident of Precinct 2. Basically, I want to know what kind of commissioner you will be. If you'll be hands-on, or have a crew, or whatever, to fix the potholes and the road conditions and the budget areas as well.
Thank you. As far as the roads go and everything like that, I would be more of a hands-on type commissioner. I don't believe that you can sit in the courthouse for 5 days a week and, for 8 hours a day and see what's going on on the outside. We would have a crew for the road. We would have for the roads and the potholes, everything that would need to be done, we would get it done. There's not a way to answer as far as what the budget would do and what we could do with that till we actually get in there.
As a manager and as a supervisor, I think you lead by serving, and you work along with your crews. I've always been hands-on. When I was the security manager for InSearch, I was the property manager, I was the real estate agent, and then I was the right-of-way manager. I was the one that went and dealt with the landowners when we were dealing with damages or they had problems. But what I believe with regards to your crews and your people is that you demonstrate to them that you're willing to work alongside of them and with them. My 37-year career, I'm from Dallas. I'm a native Dallas. I moved down here 14 years ago with my wife, and I drove back and forth 12 years, 84 miles one way, and I did it at 3:30 in the morning. And I was a manager. I've been a manager my entire career. I was not required to be there at 4:30, at 5 o'clock. I spent 37 years being at work at 4:30, and I would work until it was done, and I worked on Saturday and Sunday, and I was on call. My wife drugged me to Alaska on a 14-day cruise, and I had my computer with me and my telephone, and I didn't put on my telephone at my corporation, I'm out of the office for the next 2 weeks, we'll have limited resources. And on my computer, I answer it every day. So I'm going to be available 24/7. I manage and run my ranch I have some part-time ranch hands, and I'm not afraid of labor. I've been working. I got my Social Security card and worked in the city of Dallas as a locker boy when I was 11 years old at Pleasant Oaks Recreation Center in Pleasant Grove. So I'm not afraid to get a shovel and to see and to meet with our landowners and to see how we can rectify some of these problems and how we can improve and how we can utilize the resources wisely and our budgetary monies.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, ma'am.
How accessible?
You speak so soft. Thank you. How accessible do you think you'll be to your constituents after you are in office?
Thank you. I know a lot of people in the room, and a lot of people in the room have my personal cell phone number. You know, there's not going to be anything that would change that. I would be very accessible, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call me, come by the house, whatever you need to do. I would have an open door policy for any employee or citizen who had a concern. I'd be very accessible.
Same as what he said, I will make myself available, but as well as I'll be out and around after I do the county's business that's required in the courthouse with the other commissioners. But there'll be evenings and weekends and mornings that I'm going to meet with my crew. I may even cook them breakfast every morning. I get up so early. And then come to the courthouse and meet all these ugly other commissioners that would be working with us. But we'll be working together to accomplish the goals, and I'm going to be accessible. As I mentioned, I have the experience and the knowledge, but I've had the ability to make myself available 24/7, 7 days a week. I'm that available and accessible as a minister of the gospel. I've never taken money to preach. I still do marrying and burying. I still do weddings and funerals. As I said the other occasion, I said, you can sit on my knee at Christmas time, and I can perform your marriage ceremony, and then I can bury you. But I do it for free because I work that I could earn that right, that I could serve others and not need. I've self-funded my campaign so that I could prove that I'm willing to be accessible and willing to work with the men and the women that work in this county and provide the services that we need to provide.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Yes, Jackie.
Real Republicans, thank you. I don't speak too loud either. Took what I wanted. Real Republicans shrink government, shrink it. So what's your opinion about the size of our county government, especially in light of the fact that our population in this county has not appreciably expanded in the past 10 years?
I think the county government, I believe we've got as many people as we need. I really don't see any need to shrink anything right now. The county is growing. I would think that we have ample number of people for every job that's available.
You're exactly right in the sense that we don't always just need bigger and more. What we need to look at are what our resources are and to see if there's waste. When I ran our facilities, when I had those responsibilities, you find out where things are budgeted and how they're spent, where their suppliers are. There's opportunities without cutting employees or cutting services to look at the monies and look at how we can control those things, that we could save dollars, save money. It's kind of like you always increase it every year 5%. Why? Well, we just want to get that increase. Now, what we do need in this county is commissioners, and I'm going to volunteer to be one of the commissioners working with the other three, that we need a cheerleader and we need a promoter of this county, that we can bring in businesses and some subdivisions and some people to this county that would add some tax dollars. Our tax rate and our tax dollars now, what we need is the promotion of this county, of the things and the benefits. Now, it's kind of like the people talk about Texas. These candidates talk about Texas. I don't want the Californians to come to Texas unless we baptize them in the Red River and they leave their liberalism somewhere else. And the same way, if the downsides wants to come down here, they got to be like me. They got to get sprinkled, dipped, or dunked, and they buy into what our county is involved in. But we ought to look at their budget money and look at the resources and look at how we spend those dollars, and I think we can say, but then there are some places we need to spend some money and put those dollars. But to say, well, we're going to cut this or that, you first look and see who's performing, who's not performing. You get all the employees, you get all the counties, and see the personnel of what their responsibilities are and what we need to accomplish and how we can accomplish that.
Thank you. I think we'll have time for one more question, and then we'll wrap up. Don?
Oh, that was shocking.
I'm just going to give you some advice that I got from my friend Eddie Moore. He told me a long time ago, he said, someday you're going to be sitting in an office somewhere and somebody's going to call and complain. He said, because we get them all the time. He said, somebody's going to say, your grader came down my street, knocked my mailbox in. He said, what do you do? My first reaction was, tell him to go blazes. He said, no, sir. He said, you go out and you throw a pack of concrete in the back of the truck, your post hole diggers, you go out there and dig a hole and you put the mailbox back up for them because they're your constituents. Now, I've got 13 acres down there that I don't live on anymore. I wished I did. Wished I hadn't moved to the city. That's the truth. And I hope you guys, I know that you will have a tight budget. You won't get to do...
Question, Doc. Do we have a question?
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
My question is, how are you going to handle this budget that can't let you do everything that you want to do, and you're going to have to tell some people no?
I think that would need to be prioritized by the need of what it is. For instance, if you have a bridge out, you'd have to fix the bridge before you went and bladed a road somewhere. I think that you just have to put it into the priority.
Well, from my work experience of being the right-of-way manager for Atmos for 19 years, and we handled 6,500 miles of pipeline in 92 counties, and I was the one that the landowner got to finally appeal to. And I would go and meet with the landowners on the ground. And my reckoning and my priority and my moral was we were always going to do the right thing. We might not accomplish everything, but one thing I was going to do is I was going to be on the ground with them and let them vent and let them talk to someone instead of just on the phone talking to them and trying to say, well, it's all budgetary, it's all the monies. I'm going to go meet with them on the ground. And I traveled this state for 19 years meeting with hundreds of thousands of landowners, literally, of dealing with them. And I'm proud of the fact that I may not have done everything that they wanted or given them all the money that they wanted for damages, but that I was going to listen to them and I was going to come alongside of them and I was going to see if we could do the right thing. And we were always, and I was always given the authority to do the right thing. And in the county, we certainly are limited in our budget, but just like Eddie, you illustrated, and I've heard other things about Eddie, that he's willing to work. We're all going to willingly work with landowners and those on the roads. We're not going to make them perfect. We don't have those unlimited resources to do and to asphalt them or to do everything, but we can go and hear them and meet with them and see what we can do and come to some halfway of trying to achieve some of the things that we need to achieve. And then not necessarily just deter it to every year, next year, but try to answer the issues that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. So we will go ahead and do closing statements, and then I'll bring our two congressional candidates back up. And any remaining questions, we'll have about 15 minutes, and then we'll kind of close down this portion. And then I would encourage you, if you see these candidates, other elected officials, other candidates in other races, feel free to ask them questions, ask them tough questions. This is your time to interact with all of them. So we'll go ahead and have our closing statements here.
First of all, I'd like to thank y'all for having this. It was very nice. It was very enjoyable, very informative. Like I said, I've been in the real estate business for probably the last 20 years. I drive approximately 3,500 miles a month. I travel the same roads you do. I see the same problems you do, and I think there would be a way to fix it with just a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of work.
I think I would like to thank all of y'all for coming, and as well the opportunity I have to come and speak of myself and speak of what I believe are my abilities and my knowledge. It's an amazing thing to be an outsider, because that's all I've heard during this race. And to come out on top of the number of election votes, it was amazing to me, because I thought I'd be watching the other two in a runoff. So I'm pretty shocked, because I got here as quick as I could. I wasn't born in this county. You don't get to pick where you're born and who your parents are, but you know what? I made a volitional decision to move my wife and my little 9 grandkids that get to come visit my ranch and build my ranch here, and to live in this county and spend my dollars and put my hours and my monies in the organizations that I support. That was my volition. That was my choice. But I'd like to end by saying I'm a lifelong Republican. I've been active in the party since 1975. I worked in the Reagan-Bush campaign, in the first Bush campaign, the second Bush campaign. I was in the senatorial conventions, the county, the state. I went to the Reagan National Convention in downtown Dallas. I am a committed Christian. I am an intellectual, proud American, and intellectual, proud conservative, and I want to serve the people of Precinct 2 along with this entire county, because as a commissioner, you work with the other commissioners to accomplish all the things that need to be done. So I thank you for the opportunity. I'm blessed, and I want to give back. And as I have put on my signs, I was born to serve, and I've been serving all my life, and I want that opportunity to continue serving. May the Lord give me a few more years.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. So at this time, everybody's had a chance to speak, so I'll invite our two CD6 candidates back up, and we'll kind of have extra innings for questions. I'm sure people still have them. We're going to do this for maybe about 10 minutes, or if we run out of questions. But I know we had to cut both short so we could make sure everybody had time to answer. So if you ask a question, please specify CD6 or county commissioner. All right, so yeah, y'all can kind of sit wherever you want. And this time around, we will switch the order. So for the Congressional District 6, Ron will answer questions first, Jake will answer questions second, and then County Commissioner Bob will answer questions first, and Eddie will go second. So questions, Doc? Is it a question? Okay, just making sure.
Thank you, Chris.
I know you too well, Doc.
Ron, you've been in politics for how many years? 35, 40 years?
No, 35 at least.
And you're 65 years old, because I'm 55 and you're 10 years older than me. See, I do read your website. How do I say I want Ron Wright to be my congressman, who's been in politics for 35 years, when I can elect an American hero named Jake Ellzey?
It depends on what you want in a congressman. What you have with me is a proven conservative leader. There's a reason Senator Ted Cruz endorsed me. There's a reason Connie Burton endorsed me. The Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, Texans, Texas Right to Life, Texas Eagle Forum, a long list of conservative organizations have endorsed me because they know I'll stand up. And they know that I have the experience it takes to hit the ground running when I get to Washington. So it depends on what you want in a congressman. With me, you're going to get somebody that knows knows what to do when he gets there.
Well, we both have endorsements. They're all similar. Mine are pretty much local. I got the Texas Alliance for Life, Independent Bankers Association in Texas. I got the Farm Bureau Ag Fund. I'm a local boy, country boy. I'm proud of that. My experiences in life have set me up for this. I've been shot at by people who wanted to kill me. I think I can go to Washington, D.C. and serve you in the halls of Congress. I've seen all those enemies that are out there that we still have. They still exist. So I think I can handle going to Washington, D.C. and find my way around. I think I can be independent, an independent voice for you, because my entire life has been that. I've made split-second life and death decisions. And armed with the right information, I will always make the right vote for you, because I want this way of life preserved. So some folks have been in the political world, I've been in the real world. I've got my own business right now. Let me tell you something, paying property taxes in January when you have an ICE business, that's hard. That's not fun. Flying people around with precision and honesty and integrity and honor every day, that's what I do right now. So everything I have done has set me up to prove to you that this is all about service, because I've got a great job. I need to serve, and that's why I'm doing this. So I'm ready to hit the ground running too, and it's to represent you.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? Yes, sir.
Kind of an offshoot of what you just said, Mr. Ellzey. We know the Democratic Party, you're going to go up there and you're going to fight against them. How willing are you to fight against the Republican Party? Because a lot of us are upset with the Republican Party. How are you going to do that?
Actually, I have a long history of standing up in the establishment. Just ask anybody in Tarrant County and they'll tell you. I did it as a city councilman. I've done it as tax assessor collector several times. I was the only tax assessor collector, there was one other, the one in Galveston, that testified in favor of tax reform. That testified in favor of giving all of you a greater say in your own taxation. And I was up against my own county judge and county commissioners when I did that. I have no qualms at all about going to Washington and saying no to the Speaker of the House, saying no to the leadership. I have no plans at all to climb that ladder, because when you do, to get into leadership in Washington, you basically have to give up a little bit of your soul, because you're having to make accommodations that you wouldn't otherwise make. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make those accommodations. I'm not going up there to add to the debt. I'm going up there to reduce the debt. I'm not going up there to make deals. I'm going up there to say, let's do it right.
How many masters can you serve? Can you serve two? No, you can't serve two. Haven't signed up for any groups. Haven't said I'm going to join any caucuses. You are my bosses. I work for you. This is a 2-year temporary assignment for me. And I only answer to one master, and that's y'all. So do you want to accomplish something? Do you want to say no? Do you want to cut back on debt? Do you want to be listened to? That's the fundamental issue of leadership. And I've been doing that since I was 18 years old. July 6, 1988, I took the oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I've been in leadership ever since. And I know when to say yes, and I know when to say no. I know when to use the carrot, and I know when to use the stick. If it's something I don't believe in, I'm not going to sign up for it. There's always something to be, there's always skin if you sign up with a group or a caucus or anybody else for that matter. And I'm not going to do it. Because sometime they're going to come calling. Right? I mean, that's the way that game is played. I don't play it. I'm not going up there to be a part of leadership, but I'm also not going to, I want to be listened to. I want to be accomplished. So folks say, hey, well, what do you aim to accomplish? Is the answer no? Is the answer to get something done for this district? I'm going to protect this district, but I'm not going to go in saying, I'm saying no to everybody. That is not the way it works. That's not the way leadership works. And if you want to be listened to, you can't tell a whole group of people, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm going to say no. That's the way I see it. So I've been through those times. I've been led well, and I've been led poorly. And this is the way you do it. I've seen it over 20 years. So that's how I'm going to conduct myself. Smart, being listening to people, having to hear what they have to say, and then making my judgment if it helps the folks here, if it's good for the folks here. That's what matters to me.
Thank you, Jake. All right, do we have any other questions? Yes, Dottie.
Yep. I got a million. Sorry, guys.
Sorry, it's 8 o'clock.
I had my Democrat representative from Hays County told me I vote for him to use his judgment. And I want to know what the responsibility in DC is to the people of your district. Have you taken a course in the Constitution? And can you describe the purpose of the Constitution in under 10 words?
10 words.
Sorry, I had to throw it all in.
That's right. The Constitution is a framework for our government. It empowers government. The first 10 amendments empowers the people, or at least recognizes their God-given rights. But the Constitution is the framework for our government, and nothing government does should be done outside that. That's more than 10 words, sorry.
Join the states because they're stronger. Limit the power of the federal government.
That's it.
Perfect. We will take one more question in this full audience format, and then we'll be done. But please feel free to stick around and ask any questions that you want. So last question, who's going to take it? That tells me y'all want to get out of here. Hey, well, fine. Someone had to be the guy. All right, what's so important?
I want to ask, if I could, Bob Carroll. Bob, were you sprinkled, dipped, and dunked?
You mean when I came to this county? Well, I was told, and I'm told every day, I don't say Navarro County correctly, and everybody in Kearns laughs at me because I don't say Kearns, or wherever they say. But I do tell them that Big Tex came home, and he's Santa Claus, and that's where I live. So it must have been the birthplace. And by the way, just an anecdote, my mother took me to the state fair in 1952 when I was a boy, born in March. In September, we went to state fair, and Big Tex was up for the very first time. And I've been to the fair every year for 66 years. And my nickname in school was Big Tex because I said, "Howdy, folks. Welcome to the State Fair of Texas." And I don't know why I was kissed with cowlicks, but kissed with this mug that I can be Santa Claus to thousands of kids. But I'm glad to be here, and I got here as fast as I could, as I said.
Eddie, would you like to comment on how you're sprinkled and dunked?
Well, I've been sprinkled, dunked, and shot at.
Perfect. Well, hey, thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. This was a great event. Thank you, Dottie, for doing the lion's share of the planning on all this. Like I said, please ask questions to all of these good men who are running for office, whether they're up here, they're in the audience, whether they're an elected official already. So thank y'all, and good night.